All right, now, probably one of the most controversial chapters that I'll ever do, only because it carries a lot of stigma, and I know I've done some pretty controversial stuff thus far, so it sounds kind of moot when I say that, but the economy is very, very, very pressing issue these days, and I just like to kind of inform people as to why certain things are the way they are, and I know I'm just one person, so I probably can't grasp everything 100%. I honestly don't know a whole lot about the financial situation. I can't ever claim to know everything about everything, but from what I do know, I just like to share that information with people and hopefully give them a little bit more of an informed perspective on things. First of all, I'd like to say that the economy has suffered its share of ups and downs. I think since the Great Depression, the crash of the stock market in 1929, after that and up until the current economic crisis that I believe happened in 2007, 2008 ish, there has been, gosh, I think like 20 or 10 or 20 something recessions. I just kind of like to point out the fact that the whole point of a society is to take care of its people, and when the driving force for a society is an economy, it just kind of you're sidestepping what's really important. And let me explain this a little bit further. Back in the old days, people lived in a lot smaller groups, obviously, small tribal groups. Things were traded more like a barter type of system. Like people lived in a community, and people would go out and hunt and gather and make things, like animal skin clothing and small tools and stuff like that. And they would all basically, I don't want to say share, but everyone for the most part they do their part. Once farming and a little bit more technological advances with respect to like building and stuff like that came about, societies began to grow a little bit bigger. And over time they became bigger and bigger and bigger, and out of necessity, the whole barter thing kind of went out the window and they developed currency. What people don't realize is that back in the day, currency was developed as a means of necessity, really, because when you're trying to pay somebody and you're a farmer and you can only pay them like in wheat or something like that, that one person can't like have a savings account of wheat for a couple years. That's going to go bad at some point. So currency kind of came out of necessity. And now people treat currency like it is everything. Having money, getting money, keeping money has just become the center of basically our existence. And to me that's very, very sad, and I'm very ashamed for my species that we think this way. I'm not looking down on anyone for thinking this way or behaving in this manner, because it has, as it's basically always been for years and years. And what I'm trying to do is just to bring this information to light so that maybe you can get a different perspective on, okay, wow, I didn't even think of it that way. Now we're centered around money, and money was really just a means to an end at that point to help society function. And now it's just the center of society in its entirety. Now that we've gotten past that part, I can move on to kind of what I went into before about the fragility. I think that's a word. Of the how fragile the economy is. I know a lot of people out there might know a little bit about history and a little bit of the negative things that have happened to people that have spoken out poorly about capitalism. And I know I just like to apologize in advance. I'm not trying to set out to bring down a system or to just 100% complain, disagree with anybody about anything. I'm just trying to help people out and form a better system that would benefit everyone more. I think even the people with all the money and with all the power, once they sit down and really realize what's going on and take it from a different perspective, maybe they might actually realize that it would be better this way in the long run, even for them or for their children, maybe. Maybe not necessarily for them. Capitalism's been around for a long time now, and basically a free market system operates to, I don't even know if I can explain this very well, but it's supply and demand. What it is, you make enough food, you make enough products that people want, you sell it to what the price is that the basically you want. Sometimes there's controls, but and you make a profit out of it. Unfortunately, when profits end up kind of damaging society. With the banking crisis recently, a lot of people don't really know why it is that happened. I'm not 100% sure as to why that happened, but I have a good idea. And I believe it is because oversimplifying this. Huge amount of oversimplifying this. I'm not too familiar with the terms of trading and whatnot, but basically what it was is that it's kind of like creating fake money, sort of. And it has a little bit to do with going off the gold standard and not really regulating the banking industry how you should. But they kind of, it's so hard to explain. But for the most part, basically, they said that they made all this money and then paid themselves for making all this money. And then when the product that they made, which isn't really a product at all, failed, or I mean, people didn't have faith in it or whatever, then when the consumers go to sell back whatever product it ever it is, there ends up being no money there because there really was no money there in the first place, and all the people that invested the money in it had their money taken in the form of payment for the fake profits that the banking people took. It's just so confusing, and I know it's terrible, and my explanation is just so bad, but the whole financial system today is just so fragile, and it's so easily manipulated, and a lot of people complain about why none of these people that basically took all this money from all these consumers and investors, and they're wondering why they aren't prosecuted, this and that, and it's because it's a free market, and that's basically gives them free reign to do almost whatever they want. The only real thing that you can do is not bank with them anymore, which is almost altogether impossible at this point, just because the whole too big to fail thing. You don't really know where your money goes or how it's invested because it goes through all these, these third party people, and it's almost impossible to track. Almost, it's not impossible to track. It's difficult to track. It's not really difficult to track. It's difficult to choose where it is that your money goes if you're not like an informed investor. Really, the only thing that you could do, like I said, is just not invest with them. Sometimes you really just don't have a choice because the other product could just be terrible, or I don't know. My whole point to this is just that you can't complain about a system and then defend it, on the other hand, for promoting the exact same things that you're getting angry at it for. And that's pretty difficult concept to wrap your head around, but you're supporting a system that is screwing you over. And I know not everyone gets screwed over. I mean, but the vast majority of us do basically get screwed over. And it's just a sad fact. There's a lot of things out there that are kind of like anti-establishment, like the Occupy Wall Street movement, the We Are the 99%. And those things are they're basically telling people that the people, the 99% of people have all the power, but they don't have the means to use it because they don't have all the money. They don't have any of it. But that's the whole point. The 1% of the people has all the money when the 99% of the people, since we're a democracy, should technically have all the power, but in reality, you end up giving all that power up to those people that have all the money. And it's very political and it's very difficult to explain, but for the most part, if you have enough money for a lobbyist or to buy a candidate, like a senator or whatever, I know I'm not saying that all of them are bought and sold, but some people would say that they are. But those politicians, those are the 1% people. Most politicians, I'd say all of them, are all millionaires. And not necessarily through any fault of their own, just because you kind of need all that money just to get the support to advertise for yourself. Like, I could run to be president, but it would not work at all because I wouldn't have enough money to get my face out there, my position, none of that stuff. People wouldn't know me, anything like that. But like I said, the politicians on top are the richest people, and they hold all the power, and they do get elected on popular votes, but it's very debatable as to whether that system really works out too well or not, and or whether they really follow through with their policies that they say they're going to when you vote for them. So yeah, anyway, whole nother video. Basically what it boils down to is the people with the money control what it is that happens, obviously. And people assume sometimes, I guess, that people in the government are just like me and you. They come from places like we do, they go to public schools and this and that, but in reality, I'm not. I bet you anything, it's a very small minority of political senators or representatives or anybody that has ever attended a public school. Just saying. And one of the ways that they keep their power is that they kind of defame and villainize. I'm not even sure that's a word either. They vilify other forms of government just to make sure that they maintain their power. And one of those other forms of government is communism, socialism. And I know people probably just shit themselves that I said that, but unfortunately, communism was a very good idea that did not work out, and hopefully, I'm informed enough to let you know why. The whole goals of communism was to take all the wealth and redistribute it. Basically, exactly what it is that people in this country want to be done now. Unfortunately, it was done in a very poor way, and it wasn't very well planned out by those that weren't in power, I guess. And what ended up happening is that instead of redistributing the wealth that they all collected, they just distributed it to their buddies and the people that were already in power. So the rich people that were already politically and financially on top anyway just basically took everybody else's money and forced them all into servitude. And that was pretty shitty. So I propose that it really isn't all that bad, the general idea of it. It's really just the execution and the maintenance of a balance that we really need to focus on if we were ever to choose a system like that, which I would like to get into my own ideas of the system right now.